Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to YK Reviews. With today's video, as you see it in the title here, is all about the Ahsoka show. Is this one of the best live action Star Wars shows? Where does it rank? We'll be discussing all of that, the positives and negatives, and if it's worth a watch. This is a spoiler review, just a heads up, so let's get into it. Now, as you saw in the thumbnail, you saw in the title, I'm labeling this as if this is one of the best live action Star Wars shows that they have done. For me, in my personal opinion, I think it's one of the best live action Star Wars that they have done. There was just a lot of things that did go really well in the show, and for me, my enjoyment of this show really was skyrocketed. And again, if you haven't seen the show, everything that was wrapped up sort of built into what's going to come in the future, but we'll get into all of that once we discuss it, because it's kind of a negative if you look at it in a certain perspective. But in terms of the show overall, I had a really fun time with it. I was enjoying the week to week episodes. I had a fun time with the characters. Now, again, this is sort of leaning into like a negative, which I'll discuss later on in the video. But as a Star Wars Rebels fan, as a Star Wars Clone Wars fan, I had such an amazing time watching this. Really, my enjoyment for this, based on like Star Wars Clone Wars and Rebels, elevated the excitement towards this show. So in terms of the show itself, I feel like they've got a lot of things right when it comes to the problem that we were having with like Star Wars and also with Marvel side of things too. The runtime and the pacing of the show, it's like you have a good solid first couple of episodes, the middle sort of meanders a little bit, and then the rushed finale. That was kind of a bit of a problem, and especially with like Mandalorian, like the plot points were just all over the place. Secret Invasion's another example for it. But with this one, the runtime, nothing was like less than 40 minutes, I believe 45 minutes or up for every single episode, which is what you want. It was an 8-episode show, and every single episode felt like it was moving the story forward. The pacing of the show, the pacing of each episode was working really well for me versus like the previous Disney Plus shows that they have done. So it feels like the formula was right. The formula was done to perfection when it comes to that side of things. The finale, for example, it was 50 minutes, I believe it was. And so everything was just wrapped up all in a nice loose bow, I have to say, because again, I'll mention that later on. So that for me was just like a breath of fresh air. They did something similar with the Andor show, which I was sidetracked, supposed to review it last year, but because I was down with like illness for 2 months, I wasn't able to review it. But that is one show I loved so much. They got that formula right with the story, the pacing, the runtime. This one, same thing. Everything was done right when it comes to that side of things, and every single episode felt like it mattered. Now again, I loved the Star Wars Rebels, and this a continuation of the Star Wars Rebels. Every single episode, like the first half of the show, you kind of felt like you were watching season 5 of Rebels. So you were getting introduced to the characters like Sabine, Hera, Ahsoka, Hu Yang, and I want to just give a huge shout out to Hu Yang for a stunning performance, voiced by David Tennant, who is being played in the Doctor in Doctor Who later on this year. Love him as an actor, really enjoy his role, and he just brought a great element into the show. So just wanted to give a huge shout out to him. But you're getting introduced to these characters. The first half is sort of like the chase sequence, the build up to like what's going to happen in the later part of the show, and also the future of Star Wars. So you've got Ahsoka and Sabine with Morgan Elsbeth and Baylan and Shin Hati and Marok having this little like chase sequences there, going after Thrawn and trying to get Thrawn and Ezra in the planet that they're on. So that first half of the show was well balanced. You really enjoy what they're bringing to the table. Like for example, like they had some sequences of like the space battles. Bit of a weird aspect with Ahsoka in like a space outfit on the ship, using lightsabers to defeat other spaceships. I thought was a weird element. But other than that, like I mentioned this in a previous video, I love Star Wars when it comes to these space battles. And again, they had a great space battle sequences in the episodes. The lightsaber duels, especially with like episode 3 and the finale with the lightsaber duels. Ahsoka and Sabine working together versus Baylan Skull and Shin Hati was really well balanced. The finale when it comes to like the lightsaber sequences with Ezra, Sabine and Ahsoka fighting these night troopers, the Star Wars this lightsaber battles just worked really well. So everything was just being balanced out, and you really did have like a fun time. It was such like, for me, as a huge Star Wars fan, I was just enjoying what they were bringing to the table. I love the lightsaber battle sequences, the choreograph. If you're gonna really break it down, it's such a big improvement in the show itself, because like they had a rematch with Morgan Elsbeth and Ahsoka. They did that in the Mandalorian season 2, but the choreograph in this version, in this rematch, was done so much better than in the first battle that they did. Even though the first battle was pretty well balanced and well done, this one definitely a huge step up. You've got the night troopers, the ones that are basically zombie stormtroopers, fighting against Ezra and Sabine. It was just really fun to watch. And the first half of the show, like I mentioned, is them going to try and find Thrawn and Ezra, and then you've got the second half of the show where you've got them in the planet. They've managed to use the Purgles, use the space whales, use the hyperspace ring, like each side, to get to the planet. And again, like, it was so great to see these new galaxies, exploring different side of the Star Wars universe with different planets and different galaxies. So I'm so happy that we got to experience that. And then we got to experience Thrawn in live action. And like I said, I've watched Rebels. I've even done a review on the channel, so you can check that out somewhere on the channel. I'll link it somewhere around here. But with Thrawn being in live action, when he first showed up in the trailer, I couldn't get past the Elon Musk face. But once you get past that, it's just a brilliant portrayal of Thrawn in live action, played by the same voice actor who did it in Rebels. And he just was brilliant. Like, if you haven't watched Rebels, you're probably looking at him thinking like he's not really much of a threat. He's not got like that evil presence like Darth Vader had. But with Thrawn, like, he's not going to be fighting hand-to-hand combat, that kind of stuff. He's more of like an intelligent commander, knows how to use what he has at his disposal to take care of the enemies, and just so meticulous with Thrawn, and just a great way to have Thrawn. Never thought I would ever see him in live action, but he was just a breath of fresh air in the show. And that whole sequence of him, once he does appear, once they do get to the planet where he's on, and it's just like the stakes just get higher and higher. So I really love that aspect of the writing. And then when it comes to like the characters, Shin Hati was a great addition to the cast. I'm curious to see where her storyline is going to go and how she's going to be developed in the future. Baylan Skoll, played by Ray Stevenson, may he rest in peace. Like, he was honestly my standout in the whole show. He was the best part of the whole Ahsoka show, with his performances, with his dialogue, with his lightsaber battles. I loved what they were doing with Baylan Skoll. I love what they were doing with Ray Stevenson. So it was such a shame that he passed away, and may he rest in peace. I don't know what they're going to do with the character, because at the end of the show, in the finale, you kind of see him standing behind these statues. If you haven't seen Clone Wars, if you haven't seen Rebels, the statues basically imply a Mortis god, so he's going to be sort of going into the Mortis god realm, implying that aspect. So I don't know whether they're going to recast him or what they're going to do with the character. I'm pretty sure they're going to be thinking of recasting him, which I'm not sure how I feel, to be completely honest with you, because I just love Baylan Skoll as a character and how he was portrayed. So I do want to see his character and how they're going to do it moving forward, but I'll be curious to see what they're going to do with that aspect of the show. But of course, honestly, my favorite part of this whole show, and this may be just fan service, you can call it that, but having Anakin Skywalker, Hayden Christensen returning to the show, I think was the best part of the show. Like, that episode, just the ending of episode 4, I believe it was, where you've got him calling out to Ahsoka turning around and seeing him there, was just goosebumps moments. And then that whole episode afterwards, episode 5 with Anakin, the projection between Darth Vader and Anakin, that little mirage and like the switcheroo that they did with it, I thought was a touch of genius. Really well done when it comes to that aspect, when it comes to that visually. But then the whole episode, when you've got like the Clone Wars, live action Clone Wars, you've got Anakin and Ahsoka, young Ahsoka, then you've got the fight sequence with Ahsoka and Anakin. I could not help smiling. I honestly nearly shed a tear when he said that he was going to finish his training with Ahsoka. Like, it's, if you've seen Clone Wars, if you've seen Rebels, like, you know the history with the two of them, and that was an amazing experience to be able to watch him. And then even that last shot of Ahsoka, when you've got Force Ghost Anakin standing there, I really hope we get to see more of him. Like, I do want more of Anakin, whether it's Force Ghost, whether it's in the world between worlds, whatever they want to do with him. I just need more Anakin Skywalker in this, because that was such an amazing episode. Like, Dave Filoni really wrote this show to perfection. And as much as I'm praising this, there are some flaws when it comes to this show. Now, for me, there are some like minor nitpicks here and there, but for the biggest standout, the biggest negatives that I would have is, for me, not personally, but for other people, that I would have to say, like, for example, if you haven't seen Rebels, you might be totally lost when it comes to this show and what's going on. So this is essentially season 5. Like I said, the first half of the show is pretty much continuing what happened in season 4 of Rebels, but live action version. There's no recap or anything like that, so if you have no idea what's going on when it comes to Star Wars Rebels, you're going to be going into this very confused, not knowing what's going on, not knowing the characters like Sabine, not knowing Hera, not knowing the connection between Sabine and Ezra and that kind of stuff, and even Thrawn himself as a threat. You have no idea what's going on, you have no idea how they even got to that situation. So I feel like they could have just explored that a little bit more for like new viewers and people that haven't seen the show, so like done sort of a brief recap or just a little bit of an explanation of what's going on with the previous events of Star Wars Rebels, just to get these fans caught up so that they can also experience what we as Star Wars fans experienced in the show itself. And like I said, I have minor nitpicks, especially when it comes to like the characters of Sabine and Hera. I feel like they sort of toned them down. It was not the version that you saw in Rebels, especially when it comes to like Hera. She was very reserved, I would say. So not the kind of Hera that you saw in Rebels, but sort of reserved. I don't know if it's because of the direction that they wanted to go with or because of like the character portrayal. I'm not 100% sure, but it's not to say that she didn't do a good job with the show, with her portrayal of Hera. I really liked her, and also seeing her son Jason, but questionable choices when it comes to like bringing him to like a battlefield. Other than that, I thought it was pretty great, but again, little nitpicks just because I'm a Rebel fan and just enjoying their characters itself. I would have loved to have seen Zeb in this, but my guess is that he is going to be coming back in the future show or movies or whatever they're going to do. But in terms of like the show itself, I also feel like while the show itself was good and written well and pacing wise was done brilliantly, the finale didn't really feel like a finale of the show. They tied up, like I said, loose ends and set up everything that they needed to set up. But obviously you knew what was going to happen with Thrawn escaping, building up to like them planning on doing a Thrawn movie, doing an Ahsoka season 2, which after the show came out, they did confirm that they wanted to do a season 2. They are planning on writing it, but no confirmation yet for season 2. But with Thrawn escaping, Thrawn going to the main galaxy, and so everything's just sort of left on a cliffhanger. Like I said, Baylan Skoll, Shin Hati, Ahsoka and Sabine stuck on this planet, Ezra returning to Hera. So you've got lots of things to explore. So if you wanted more of like a episode 1 to episode 8 one and done story, you're not going to really get that with the show. It's going to be explored a lot more, which you can kind of see as a negative. But for me, I haven't been honestly this excited for a long time when it comes to like the future of Star Wars. Mandalorian season 3 really got my like excitement level dropped down a lot. But then with this and then what they're going to be building, so Ahsoka season 2, we're going to have Skeleton Crew. I believe that they're possibly going to be in the same galaxy as Ahsoka and Sabine. I'm not 100% sure. I need to double check with that. But then you've got the Thrawn movie, possibly a trilogy of Thrawn movies based on like the books. So it's just a really exciting time to be a Star Wars fan, but that could also be seen as a negative. And then in terms of like Marok, for example, I felt like that was sort of a wasted character. You had Marok appearing, there was all this build up of like, oh, who is it going to be? So many fan theories, and maybe that's just my fault for reading online, going on YouTube, seeing all these people's reaction and thoughts and theories to who Marok could be, only to kind of just be left where he gets killed off in episode 4 and then that's it, like nothing ever like returned back to it. We do know that some green mist came out, so it's going to be linked to like the Night Sisters, but other than that, nothing was really explored. So that kind of left me disappointed, even though it was going to be like maybe a zombie, but I kind of wish they explored that more, see who it was, potentially a character that we may know or not, but at least like have that, because he was in the first couple of episodes and then sort of just never seen again, never spoke of, never heard of again. So that kind of left me disappointed. And again, another nitpick, to be honest with you, is like the show being called Ahsoka when it really is like a Rebels season 5. So having the show called Ahsoka, but it's not really focused on like Ahsoka's character arc, because even like Ahsoka in the early parts of the show was very reserved, not really the kind of Ahsoka that you saw in Clone Wars, definitely not that portrayal, but she had her reasoning. The writing was done well in terms of like why she is how she is, and then how to get her out of that and get her into like this more trustworthy, more willing to become the master, Jedi master, with Sabine as the apprentice. But you have some episodes where it's not focused on her and it's focused on like other situations going on. So again, a nitpick about that being called the Ahsoka show, even though I love the show itself, that's just like a small nitpick I have for it. But overall, in terms of the show itself, like I said, I really had a fun time with this show. I enjoyed every single aspect of what they did with the show and how they portrayed every single character and how they did every single episode. It really is peak Star Wars for me, and I know there may not be people that agree with that, but I highly recommend this, especially if you're a Star Wars fan, if you're a fan of Rebels, if you're a fan of Clone Wars. You'll love this show. You'll have such a fun time with it. Now, I said in the title, is this one of the best live action Star Wars shows? I think it's one of the best. It's not my top. So if I'm going to rank this, like off the top of my head, I'm going to put Book of Boba Fett as the bottom, Obi-Wan as second last, and then you've got The Mandalorian, just because season 3 was such a letdown. Then you've got Ahsoka, and then you've got Andor. Like for me, Andor is the best Star Wars live action show that they have done so far. Ahsoka is easily in second place, very close with Andor, but Andor, I'll give you one scene, and it's with that Andy Serkis scene in the prison break. Just go watch that and you'll know why Andor is peak Star Wars. But Ahsoka is number 2 hands down, unless I'm missing any other show off the top of my head. But it's just really great, and honestly, Dave Filoni really did a fantastic job with this show and with the writing of every single character and the future, the build up to what's gonna come next. Like I said before, really excited to be a Star Wars fan right now and see what they're gonna build on and how they're gonna build this Mandoverse universe kind of thing with every single show and character. And if they are going to do a season 2, I hope to God they do it very soon. Whether it's going to be a Thrawn movie first and then Ahsoka season 2, or Ahsoka season 2 and then a Thrawn movie. Either way, I've got my ticket ready for the Thrawn movie no matter what. But those are my thoughts on the Ahsoka show. I want to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Did you like this show? Have you watched the show? Would you watch this show? Please let me know in the comment section down below, because I'm very curious to hear your thoughts about this. I just posted a Chucky season 2 review. With Chucky season 3 just premiering, there's going to be a Chucky season 3 part 1 video also coming to the channel, along with so much other stuff for the month of October, for the spooky season, for the Halloween season. So definitely keep an eye out on the channel for those videos. But I thank you so much for watching, and I thank you so much for listening. This is YK Reviews.